Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Thandi Modise says the Russian vessel that docked in Simonstown was delivering equipment that had been ordered by the South African National Defence Force before the COVID-19 pandemic. She denied allegations made by U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigetti, that the ship was loaded with weapons for Russia. For more on this, I'm joined by Kobus Mare, who is with the Democratic Alliance. He's a member of parliament for the party. Kobus, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. This is not the first time that the Minister of Defense gives such an explanation, or has she added additional information that may be new?
Yes, good afternoon to you, Clement, and your listeners and your viewers. Listen, initially she denied to comment. Then at one stage she used that very derogatory word starting with the F, meaning that she claimed that there was nothing loaded onto the vessel. Then afterwards she claimed that it was they didn't load anything, meaning the Defence Force or the Navy. And then subsequently she mentioned in a oral question response in Parliament to the DA that maybe it was some clandestine individuals loading stuff on the vessel. So what we know at this stage is, yes, there was 2 permits issued for imports of what they refer to as Russian rounds and shells, which is most probably AK-47 bullets or other shells that are being used by our special forces in Limpopo. So that was issued in 2019 and 2020. Now the question is, were those import permits still valid? Because an import permit is normally it's valid for only 45 days. And so far I've tried to establish whether extensions to those permits were granted, which was never reported to the Joint Standing Committee on Defence, and I haven't received an answer yet. So what we also know is that the 2 permits that was issued was roughly the same quantity as what was offloaded from the ship into 7 containers and delivered to the ammunition depot in Limpopo. So in terms of what was ordered and offloaded, I don't think there's much discrepancy, although we don't know whether it was still valid. Yeah. We don't know what was loaded onto the vessel, because we know on the Friday morning, after the 7 containers left from Cape Town or Simonstown to the ammunition depot where they arrived on Friday evening, we know that 3 o'clock on that Friday morning, there was still activity with a crane under spotlights loading something onto the vessel. Yeah. So the fact that the American ambassador has made that allegation is actually a confirmation of what I knew right from that first day or that first Friday. So something was loaded, and if it was nothing, then why keep it secret? Why didn't they admit it to that nothing was loaded? And if it is not classified, so what is the problem? So the fact that they are refusing to make the terms of reference available on the panel that was investigating this, they have invited me, but in terms only of the docking of the vessel and not what was loaded and offloaded on and from the vessel. So something is wrong to the fact that they don't want to make the report public, and that they've already declared right from the beginning. So all of this don't add up, and we know that something was loaded, and obviously whether the report will reveal that is a different question, given that they have already said that it will be kept secret. So yes, something is wrong, something is fishy, and there's too much conflicting explanations and things that they are saying.
If government sticks with this explanation,
and that's why, and that's why we are keeping our options, taking further action.
Okay, if government sticks with this explanation, Was it necessary then to establish the inquiry to investigate, or was that an important exercise, I imagine, to clear the air with the U.S.?
Well, what we know is that normally any ammunition or weapons imports and exports do not take place via Simonstown, which is not a custom ports of entry and exit. So there must have been reasons why they have tried to bypass the official port of entry facilities in Cape Town or Port Elizabeth or Durban or Kruger or East London. So they never intended to go to a normal port of entry, and that means that whatever they had on the vessel to be offloaded or something to be loaded onto the vessel will never pass the scrutiny and the standards of the official customs ports of entry. So that in itself, right from the beginning, was quite questionable. Remember, the Lady R was escorted into False Bay and Simonstown by 2 naval vessels, which can only take place by a very high-level authority and approval. So what was the reason that this vessel didn't port in Cape Town and didn't dock in any of the other customs ports? So why was this naval base of ours abused in such a way? There must have been good reason for them to do that, because this is quite extraordinary, and that we need a very good explanation for this. I have asked the minister whether they have determined who is responsible for this and whether there will be consequences. Her response was last week or end of last week that, the panel will come up with an explanation, although, we know it will be kept secret. So very, very conflicting things that they are saying that don't add up.
Okay. Do you think the U.S. will approach the inquiry to share information they have? Is that not a fair expectation? And as the DA, have you approached the inquiry to share information you have about that vessel and why it was here?
I have received an invitation up the, on the proverbial number 99, end of last week. I have then asked them, okay, what do you want from me? How do you want me to respond to what? Because all that they were indicating is the docking of the vessel. Now, the challenge is partly the docking of the vessel, but it's also what was loaded and offloaded. And that was not clear from that. They didn't want to give me their terms of reference so that I know in what way to respond. So it was a kind of an open end, but very narrowly defined objectives. And I assume the Americans was probably given the same opportunity. Now, if I do not have the opportunity to make sure that whatever I have submitted and testified will be correctly reflected in the report, then there's a very high risk of getting involved. I was not given that assurance, and that's why I have decided, and the DA has decided, that we will not participate at this stage, given that we will not have input. So whether the Americans has been given the same opportunity, I don't know.
And I suppose at the end of the day, it's not going to help much when we don't have information that's also provided to this inquiry. Is it not possible for you as the DA to talk to the people that had provided you with even photographs and information that suggested that there was stuff that was loaded, so they can go and, of course, have their identity protected and share that information with the inquiry? Because I imagine that can be of great help.
That was certainly my objective, to share that, given that I must know what they want to achieve and what their objectives were. They didn't give that to me, and they've only said it was about the docking and not the rest, because the rest I have the information, and it is reliable, the information. So obviously that is also why I have submitted a PIA application to get access to the cargo manifest of both the Lady R and the Illusion Russian aircraft that landed in April on Waterkloof Air Force Base. So far, they have not, they've only extended my application, the time period that they must respond within. So we will obviously keep that application for our PI application. We will look at that and make sure that they respond to that. Otherwise, we still, are considering further legal actions to get access to that report.
Okay, and there was a lot of confusion about that report and whether or not it would be made public. What do you understand about what the plan is? If I remember correctly, the last time the presidency communicated on it, the suggestion was that it will not be released publicly.
Yes, that was one of my concerns when I communicated with the panel to say, will I at least be given the opportunity to make sure that whatever I have testified and supplied into the report will be exactly what I have done and what I have given them to just check on that. I was not given any feedback on that. So in other words, they certainly intend to keep that private and confidential and not disclose it to anybody, which obviously makes no sense if there was nothing illegally loaded and offloaded. So all they are doing, they are extending the life of this mystery that has happened there. So, and it will not go away very easily, and it will obviously not satisfy our trading partners, the Americans, the European Union, etc. So we are still in for a long run on this.
Kobus Mare, DA Member of Parliament, thank you for joining us for this conversation.